Good morning, good afternoon. It's me again, Jen. Hello. And it is Thursday, the 18th of June, and I am super excited because, we're closing in on the weekend, and I always like weekends. We're also closing in on summer solstice and also Father's Day. So I'm going to give a little bit of an early happy Father's Day to everyone in case I forget tomorrow. So it is getting warm, and apparently so are the cards because I'm dropping things all over the place today. All right, without further ado, let's pick our card for today. Ta-da! We have the 8 of Coins. So coins, also discs, also pentacles. Again, it kind of depends on what sort of card you're working with, which deck you're working with. This deck is very abstract. Again, this month, super exciting. We are working with the Sakki-Sakki Tarot deck, which she has a lot of abstract stuff going on with these, as we have seen. Also, this is another headless card. What makes this card even more disturbing, I don't know if you guys can really tell, that's a pair of scissors in her hand. And I say her because it kind of looks like a dress, but it could be a guy too. It doesn't really matter. So, because they have no head. It does not matter. But so to me, it kind of looks like they cut their own head off, so that's a little disturbing. I don't know how I feel about this. Other little unique things about this card, though. So we've got what looks like a dressmaker's bust in the background, which is kind of cool, a dressmaker's form. For those who are not crafty inclined, this is kind of what tailors and costume designers and the like use to kind of build onto so that they know what size a thing should be. It kind of looks like she's holding a needle and thread also, and of course the creepy scissors. So I don't think this is about the person cutting their own head off. I think it is about doing work and tailoring and things of that nature, which I kind of like, that it's a little less of a, not to say that making costumes and the like is not a laborious task, but a lot of times this is symbolized by someone actually like hammering at the discs to create them. And in this case, it kind of looks like they might be cutting them out and stitching them. And as I look even closer to it, there is like stitching going on over here around each disc, and it does kind of look like the scissors are what cut out the discs. So that is going to make for a very interesting outfit or quilt or something, but I think it's kind of interesting that they use sewing instead of like hammering something and kind of more an aggressive, because this is a very detail oriented sort of card. It is about hard work. It is about the material world because we know that coins, discs, pentacles all have to do with the material and fertility in that way. This is more material in the sense of work and finances and things of that nature. So looking at this and seeing that like there's some detail work going on, there's cutting going on. This is about tuning in and honing your craft. So while yes, hammering the disc and using like maybe a smaller mallet to get all the little pieces nice and smooth and there's no hammer marks in it or anything like that, I can get that that's a detail oriented thing, but I really do feel like sewing and that sort of thing is a very detail oriented art. So I really like that aspect of it. I'm not too fond of the headless person in this one because there is a sharp object involved. I feel like the swords with headless people and now this one with headless people is a little bit disturbing. I don't know how I feel about that. But either way, the eights are again one of those numbers in the suit where you're kind of finding a base. You have leveled up. And I think we talked about this a little bit when we talked about a 4. When the 4s come up, it's okay, you have reached the ground floor level. You have the basement is done, your ground is prepped, sort of thing. Your foundation is laid for whatever you're going to do. That said, this is where, as this is, you work on the details now. You get to work on the things that are like, okay, you know how to sew a dress, a simple shift, shall we say. But now, can you pleat it? Can you put buttons on it? Can you add all the little, beautiful things that make it unique and special rather than, okay, it's a shirt or it's a pair of pants? Can you make it beautiful now? So when this card comes up in a reading, it does typically have to do with work and the work environment, but it can also be something that has to do with a relationship. Now you've got a steady relationship, you've got a stable relationship, you are living together, you are happy, but now it's time to work on those details. It's kind of time to work on, well, what sorts of things can we do to help each other grow is kind of the way I look at it in terms of a relationship. And in terms of like globally speaking, I look at it as something of, okay, we have laid a great foundation. We have opened up conversation. We have done this thing that is a little bit messy. Now it's time to kind of shore up the details and sew it up together. Sewing reference again. That's probably more because it's in front of my face. But it's about like sewing in those details and going, okay, what do we need to do for the next steps? What do we need to do to make this a reality? We've made a big mess, but how do we make it whole again, I guess, in a way? So when it comes to the details on those kinds of things, look at, okay, you've got all the pieces in place. The planning is done. Now, how do we execute it and work on the fine details? And it's really interesting to me because I've just started a couple of projects with other people, and that's one of the biggest things to talk about is that's great, but what are our day-to-day goals? What are our weekly goals? And that's what this should be about in terms of anything in a reading is what are the details? What are the little things that we need to do? How do we keep this conversation going? How do we keep learning how to hone our craft? How do we keep growing on this project? How do we keep moving forward? Because there is a tendency with the fours and things of that nature to kind of get to a point where you're spinning your wheels and you're taking things for granted. So if you do find that in any phase of your life, you're kind of taking something for granted, look at the finer details. What can you do to make it better? What can you do to make it feel like you are learning still and you are growing still? Because we are. Up until the day we die and even after, if that's what you believe, then we are growing, we are changing. So that is what the focus of this card is. Grow, find the details. And I just realized I haven't said anything about it. There are two little symbols down here. One of them is the symbol for sun, and the other one is the symbol for Virgo. So I'm not really sure what the sun part has to do with it, other than yes, when you're trying to grow something, you need some sunlight, you need energy, you need that light. But with Virgo, that's really cool because I am totally not calling out my Virgo people out there and my Virgo friends. I'm totally not calling you out. They're very detail oriented. Virgos are super detail oriented. They like to know what is happening every minute of the day and they like to have plans. This is obviously stereotyping. I feel bad if I didn't know so many Virgos who were like this, but it is about being detail oriented. And again, I feel like that Virgo energy really calls into that of, hey, cross the T's, dot the I's, do the little tedious work. Time to sew the buttons in place. That's what this is about in this card. So I hope that kind of gave you some insight into the Eight of Coins and what that card means, and also a little bit of insight on maybe what some of those symbols can mean, what different things can come up in a reading. I also hope that in some way it gave you a little advice and a little insight on today, whether that's personal, global, or just in your community. Reach out and find some things to work on the details and keep the conversation going and meet those little goals. So other than that, if you have any questions about the tarot, please feel free to leave a comment down below. If you have any suggestions to me about how to interpret this card any better or some interpretations that you've come across, absolutely leave a comment below. If you're interested in lessons, if you're interested in tarot readings, I do Zoom, I do all kinds of things, internet as well as in my home. So please feel free to check out my website. It's in the description, and go ahead and make an appointment there. Also, if you're interested in the other weird stuff that I do, playing ukulele, belly dancing, sword fighting, all that kind of stuff, please check out my other videos and check out other things that I do out in the world. Until then, please stay safe, please stay healthy, and this has been Jen, and I am signing off. Bye!